Welcome to Good Goodbyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. We are really glad you found us. In this podcast, me, Simon, a funeral director,
And me, Tina, I'm an independent celebrant.
we discuss all things funeral in an informal space to demystify what happens when we say goodbye.
Based on your questions and queries, Si and myself are two industry professionals that are going to chat through the hows, whats, and wherefores. We actively work in the funeral industry in Devon in the UK. So we hope you enjoy the episode ahead. Welcome to Good Goodbyes. Well, hello, this is Tina, and I'd like to welcome all our listeners to Good Goodbyes. I have a guest with me this week. I'm here with Nancy. Nancy, do you want to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Hello, listeners. My name's Nancy Whitmarsh. I'm a funeral celebrant. So that's all I do is funerals.
And you do that sort of full time, don't you,
Full
Nancy?
time. Yeah, I do. I'm very fortunate that I can do it full time because not everybody can, but I love it. I absolutely love it. It's such an honor.
And how long have you been a funeral celebrant?
It'll be 6 years in May.
Oh, gosh.
I know it's gone really quickly.
I know. That's amazing. So you must have supported so many families in that time. Do you know how many funerals you've supported?
I don't, and I have kept count of them, but I keep a count of them each year, so I'm not entirely. I haven't added them up. Maths is not my thing, so it's only six years worth.
So how
But
many a year do you think you do?
well, it's grown, and that's the lovely thing. So I've probably done 50 or 60 some years, and 100. Last year was over 100. I know that much. So. Uh,
Gosh.
yeah, which is incredible.
And amazing to think that anyone who works with you is getting such an experienced person.
That's the interesting thing, because I I often think because we all have that imposter syndrome thing when we go into a family and you think, oh gosh, I hope I can give them everything, oh, the best thing, and then they'll ask questions and you'll know the answers. And then they'll say something about their loved one and you'll know a poem. And it's just that experience
Yeah.
is incredible, really.
Mm.
And I'm really grateful that I've got it. And there's things that I learn all the time,
Yeah.
because everybody's different, every family is different, they deal with grief in a different way,
Mm.
and but it's such an honor. I just feel it's an honor to meet the families, often get on really, really well with the families, and then to meet their loved one through them
Yeah.
is
Yeah. I do
is
always feel like,
amazing.
I often feel, and you might say the same, that once I've got to know the family, got to know the person's story, I then often genuinely wish I'd known them.
Oh yeah, all the
Yeah.
time.
All
All
the
the time.
time. So
Yeah.
the reason I've kind of stolen some of your time, Nancy, and asked you to join mine and Simon's podcast is because I conducted a service for a family recently, and it was the husband who died, but his wife had advanced dementia. She was living with dementia. And we had to really think about how we could design things and arrange things to get her to feel fully included. And I thought this would be a great thing to talk to you about because I'm sure that this will have come up for you in the many times that you've worked
Yeah.
with people. And I think for our listeners, often people feel quite stuck around this. They're not sure what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do. And also, of course, I am a nurse by background, and I work with people living with dementia for a good part of my career. It's what I did a lot of the time.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
So
you've got good experience of that.
I feel maybe not, but I feel quite comfortable when this happens.
Mm.
And I was saying this to the family, don't worry. So one
Yeah.
of the things that was quite interesting was they were terribly worried. So she couldn't really participate a lot in giving the history of the person, but she enjoyed looking through the photographs and choosing some of those for the tribute.
Yeah.
She really was getting upset a lot and crying because I think people who are living with dementia, you see their emotions more than you might see some of our emotions because they haven't got that kind of wall that they hide behind that we all do sometimes.
They're completely exposed, aren't they?
Yeah, but the family were quite concerned about things like she wouldn't put on her shoes, she came in her slippers. And when they arrived into the service, they were like, she's got, I'm so sorry, she hasn't got her shoes on. It's like, it doesn't matter. No, I know. And the other thing was she needed to go to the toilet on arrival. So we all had to just take a little breath in about, we can't get started yet because she's still in the toilet. So there was just a moment and I was like, it'll be fine. We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, things like that, because you can't necessarily reason with a person and say, you need to have your bum in the seat because we needed to have started 3 or 4 minutes ago.
To be honest, in my experience, I don't think it's necessary to reason with them. I think you have to go at their pace, really. And I know we've got a timing limit often if we're at a crematorium. But certainly the family meeting, I've always done it at their pace. So if they want to wander off, I mean, there's so many different stages and different types of dementia, isn't there? So you don't, it's kind of just learning about that person as well. But in a way, we do that with everybody, that when we walk into a family group, you don't know anything about them, so you're learning about each one, and you kind of, because of your experience, I think you take in each person and read the room. That's a really good way. Read the room. And so if somebody is there with dementia, sometimes you've not even been told that they've got dementia. I certainly know that I went to visit a family and this lady's daughter had died, and she was young, and it was heartbreaking. And she was in, I'm not a nurse, Tina, so I would have said kind of the mid stage. She wasn't, she knew basically what was going on, had some lucid moments and not entirely, but not always, but she knew she had dementia. And she told me, I have dementia. So I said, okay, then we'll just take everything slowly. And the one thing I found was I was very kind. I mean, you are kind when you go into a family, but I held her hand and touched her knee, and it was almost as if I had to kind of create a bond with her so she felt comfortable with me. I felt that was one of the most important things of the whole meeting.
Yeah.
Because to be fair, when we do a service, that I personally feel one of the most important things is that people feel they can trust you. They can trust you with their loved ones' memories in a meeting, and in a service, they can trust you with their words. And it's so important. And I think that certainly with the lady with dementia is to talk to them in a way that they feel it's okay. I'm not frightened of this person. I feel safe, and I can trust her. And I think that it's being really gentle.
No, I love what you said, because on a number of different levels, really. Firstly, I think what dementia does is, somebody described it once to me like, it's like your brain is in a cloudy sky and you can't see, and then every now and again the clouds part and you can see, you come back to the world and you realize what's going on around you. But sometimes, because you've been in the clouds for so long, it's scary because you wonder where the time has gone since you last felt so lucid. So that was explained to me by somebody who was living with dementia, who used to be a teacher, and I thought, what an amazing explanation. But he also said to me something I'll never forget, which was, and you really rely on your instincts. So you might not be as clever as you used to be. This is him as a teacher speaking, I guess. But he said, but you really rely on your instincts. So you know if things are safe or not safe, and people are safe or not safe, or kind or not. And I think, therefore, what you said about building a connection and people really getting a sense of us is really important. And I think often that would allow you to touch someone more than I might normally, to kind of put a,
I wouldn't normally. I mean,
no, exactly. You know,
but
no,
you're right.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. But some people I sort of feel my way in, and I still might give them a hug. And other people, I get the
You know that you
thank you
are.
message, yeah, and
Yeah.
often for folks with dementia, a little bit of reassurance is really helpful. But
Yeah.
the other thing that struck me is about, how much people can contribute, because I think the
Oh,
other
yeah.
thing about society is this idea that if you have dementia, then this phrase, "you've lost all your marbles,"
Yeah. That's it. You're
is
done.
mm,
Yeah, and that's so unfair. My mum had Alzheimer's. She had it for 4 years before she died. And she was so incredibly clever, Tina, because she made up things and so that she was a great storyteller anyway, but she made up things so that she could be part of a conversation. So I would certainly rely on the family to tell me that actually we never did have a rabbit, which is something my mum used to always say. I remember when you all had a rabbit. We never had a rabbit. But she contributed and she was able to talk as if, and I think a lot of people would have gone into that situation talking to my mum and not realised that she had dementia at all.
mm,
But a lot of the things that she was saying weren't entirely
accurate.
accurate.
Yeah. And in is a posh word for us all today, listeners. In nursing terms, it's called confabulation.
Oh my,
Yeah, I know, isn't it posh? So you don't know that people sometimes have dementia because they can join in, because they've got this skill of, like, you say things to them like, "Oh, what you been doing today?" And they go, "Oh, this and that, been so busy." You go, "Have you seen anyone?" "Oh, yeah, they've been trooping in and out of here. They
oh
have,
no.
yeah." And you think, who are these people who've been trooping in and out? So they find a way to join in without exposing the fact that they don't really remember things.
Remember, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, but they can contribute, and there
mm,
are things, and I also think it's really important when that person is in a family group and you're talking to them about their loved one, that you do say, you know, what did you think about, or how did that make you feel, or
mm,
I expect you're feeling really sad now because she was such a happy lady, or and just kind of try and draw out a feeling, because often we also go on feelings. We go on facts, of course, but it's how did they make you feel? What, how did they make you laugh? And when I ask a question, they'll say, "Oh, she was so funny," and I'll say, "How was she funny?" And then they can tell you, and that's really nice when you have someone with dementia, because did she make you laugh?
yeah.
And oh yeah, she made me laugh all the time. Oh, can you remember anything she said? Well, not, you don't say, can you remember? I tend to try and avoid that, but
Mm,
um, yeah, is there anything she said that made you laugh, or
yeah.
and you can kind of draw things out from them, and they're so desperate to be a part of it.
Yeah, I agree. And the worst thing I've ever seen, I'll tell you my worst case scenario story, is when I was a nurse and I was working in a certain place, and we had lots of people being assessed who were living with dementia. And one lady, unfortunately, while she was with us, her husband died. And the family, this is a true story, everybody. The family came into the hospital and visited. And as they were leaving, they said, "She's really upset. We think we've upset her. Just so you know, as nurses, that she's upset." And I said, "Why is she upset?" And they said, "Well, because Dad has died." And we showed her this photograph of his coffin. So they brought in a photograph of a coffin, this family. And I know they were probably doing their best in their own minds. And they showed her a photograph of a coffin and they said, "Dad has died, and that's the coffin he's in." Now, when you have dementia, that is just really not likely to compute with you. So we had to do a lot of trying to help this lady. And she often would get very upset and say, "I'm looking," and wandering and saying, "I'm looking for John, I'm looking for John." And the family would say, "Well, he's dead, Mum, we've told you." And we would explain that it's a bit better, kinder, to not say that, It's not about factual accuracy. It's about, oh, you must really be thinking about John, or gosh, isn't it upsetting that John has passed, or whatever. But just tapping in, like it's just like you said, to the feelings.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I always get the feeling how hard it must be for somebody who's lost someone when they have dementia, because if they are if you have to keep reminding them of it, they will feel heartbroken every single time. And I can relate that to my mum. Somebody close to us had passed away. We told her, and she computed it, and then kind of it went. And we did tell her again, and she broke her heart again. And so in the end, we'd say, "Oh yeah, he's just, he's not around at the moment, or haven't seen him for ages, or and kind of." Because we felt that was kinder, even though it wasn't quite truthful, we did feel it was kinder that she wasn't hurt because she
I
forgot.
know.
It's so hard, isn't
It
it?
is hard, and I've certainly come across people in their mid to late 80s who are saying, oh, looking for their mum.
Yeah.
And people saying, well, work it out. If you're in your mid 80s and your mum was 100, and would she still be hit? Well, when you have dementia, you're not doing the maths.
No,
You're just feeling the feelings.
of
So I
course.
completely agree with you, and I would be along the lines of, oh, you must so be thinking about your mum. Were you
Yeah.
close?
That's it. What was she like? Tell me what she was like, and you can change tack easily, and allow them to kind of remember as much as they can, or tell you
Yeah,
about her in their own way.
exactly.
Which is lovely.
And in this recent service, it really came to mind for me. So when we got the lady in her seat and she had her tissues, and she was well aware, because the environment gives clues. So she
Yeah.
was well aware of what was going on. And when the visual tribute happened with the music, I mean, I think music is so evocative, and it's one of the last things we hang on to in our memory. And then when you have dementia, often you can remember song lyrics and sing along to
Oh, yes, I've
yeah.
seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you can't remember whether you've had a cup of tea 5 minutes ago. Mind you, that sounds like my everyday. So
Yeah, mine.
um
Certain time of life,
yeah,
tea.
yeah. But she really connected to that, and she was watching it, and she was going, oh, there's us in our
Oh,
holiday, and she really got it.
I
And so
love
it made me think that settlements are actually very good at this. When you're in someone's home and you refer to a photograph and you say, oh, is that you? What were you doing then? Or that's
Yeah,
a very useful tool when someone has dementia.
yeah, very much. And in a service, it doesn't matter if they shout out. It doesn't matter if they wear their socks and no shoes. It doesn't matter if they wear their pajamas. As long as they're there
Mm.
and they're getting what they need or what they can from a service, is the most important thing, you know.
And and she lingered for quite a while by the coffin. And it did make me think there's lots of people who, their cognition, the way they understand the world is different, isn't it? More people with
Very much so.
neurodiversity.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, I did have a chat once shouting out quite a lot
Oh, I've had that a lot.
because that was the nature of him. And I had to keep saying, let's call him Billy. I had to keep during the service going, we're coming to that bit, Billy, in a minute. And he started telling the story, and I said, I reckon that'd be a good one for afterwards when everyone's having a cup of tea.
Oh, that's good.
Just trying to manage, and actually to reassure families that we're actually quite good at that bit of managing.
Yeah, yeah, so because we understand people, and that's why we're in the role that we're in. It's because we, as best we can, we do try to understand people and take their cues, and and it's nice when people say we do have John and he may shout out, and it's like it's fine, and you're aware of it then, and you can kind of, as soon as someone shouts out, you think, well, that must be John, and you're like, okay, yeah, it's John or whatever, and you talk to John, and you kind of just get back to it, and But that's the informality as well. I think a lot of people feel embarrassed if someone's going to do that, because they feel it's almost like in the old church settings that funerals used to be in, which, you know, there's certainly a place, of course, for people with faith to go to a church, but they're often they can be quite austere, and don't lend themselves to people yelling out, and, you know, which is such a shame.
Mm.
You know, but I think that's where people get worried. Don't make a noise in church. It's that kind of, and actually, you know, it doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter in church either. You know, people shout, it doesn't matter. But it's that, I think it's an old-fashioned sort of feeling of being embarrassed. And you
Yeah.
don't have to be embarrassed about your loved one, because they're there, and that's the main thing.
And it's that, I guess it's that feeling of formality, isn't it? And I was talking to Bernie recently, who's on a podcast episode that's gone out this week, and she was saying about how it's becoming more often that people will not have their main service in the crem or at church. They might have it in the pub or in you know, anywhere, a hotel, their house. And then when it comes to saying goodbye, the funeral director can help with all of this. That the hearse will arrive, the person will arrive, you'll have your service wherever, and then the person leaves. And almost as you're waving them goodbye, that's the goodbye, like the goodbye you get when you leave the crem or you leave the church or the burial ground. So maybe that will help people who couldn't feel more relaxed in other places.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I've certainly taken services in pubs and hotels, out on a green, on a beach, you know, just, and it's lovely over Zoom.
Mm.
You know, it's lovely. It's completely, it's exactly what makes people feel comfortable, and that's the main thing, really, because they're doing such a huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this last goodbye, it's their last gift. It's huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know, for them to feel comfortable and relaxed, and, you know, that they're doing the right thing, I think it's lovely.
If somebody is trying to support somebody with dementia to kind of participate in a funeral or help plan one, what advice would we have for them?
Well, certainly I would suggest that they just make sure that that person feels relaxed. So if it's an environment that makes them feel relaxed, they can choose that. If it's with people that they know there, and like you said, Tina, get photograph albums out. Memory pointers will help when they're talking about them. All of that will help. Just make sure they feel relaxed and never feel embarrassed.
Yeah. And just know that, you know, a minister or a celebrant will just want you to have the service that you want to have for yourself. And we will not mind. We're really flexible creatures. And so are funeral directors. You know, we will all have seen and done this before, and it will be fine. And you just really have to not worry.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is, just don't worry. We'll look after you. You
Yeah.
know, let us come in and we'll look after you. And that's what we're there for. And that's what the funeral directors are there for. And we should, you know, whoever you have, we should make you feel comfortable and relaxed, and include your loved one with dementia in everything that they do.
I couldn't have said it any more perfectly. So we're going to end there. But it's been a pleasure having you on Good Goodbyes, Nancy.
Oh,
Thank you
for
so
having
much.
me. Thank you, listeners.
You've been listening to Good Goodbyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment and share. Drop any questions on our social media, on Instagram, or in the text option in the show notes.
Si and I are qualified professionals, but we always advise our clients to seek any additional support from medical practitioners if they need to. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay well and be kind to one another.